So that was potential free agent Dwight Howard answering questions on TNT last night about his commitment to the game. He also told TNT he has not made any decision on his future. Skip, what was your takeaway from Dwight's comments there?
Stephen A., I watched the whole thing live. I think you did also.
Yes, I did.
I found the whole interview frustrating. I found the whole conversation off point. I didn't get this theme about people think you're a bad guy, Dwight. And then he was responding, yeah, people think I'm a bad guy and it hurts me and it ticks me off. Stephen A., I could be wrong about this, but I don't know anybody who thinks Dwight's a bad guy. I think they think he's too nice of a guy, that he doesn't take basketball seriously enough, that, to use his term that he used last night on TNT, that he's too laid back, that he doesn't have one drop of Russell Westbrook in him. We don't sense any killer instinct. We don't sense any drive, any rage to win. We sense a guy who's extremely gifted, who's put up very good numbers, but has never been obsessed with maximizing his potential. So it's like Dwight still doesn't get it. It's not about being a bad guy. It's about being a really good guy. Where's the killer instinct? Where's the will to win? Where is the rage to work so hard that you improve your low post scoring, which he's never been able to improve, and he's got ability more than he has shown. Why in the offseason don't you get better at scoring, especially in the fourth quarter in the low post with moves or shots? You've got ability that has not ever been maximized. And obviously his free throw shooting has never improved. Yet all along he's made $167 million in his 12 NBA seasons. If he says yes to the Houston Rockets right now, he can make $23 million to play in Houston next year. It's his call. You know, and I know he probably wants to once again test the free agent waters because he wants one more max deal. So at age 30, Dwight Howard on potential alone, because everybody looks at him and says, gee, if only we could get the most out of Dwight. Maybe we could win a championship with Dwight. He just might get another max deal and another, God knows, $100 million. So to me, in the big picture, at the end, Charles said, I'm paraphrasing what Charles said, but he said, let me explain to you how TV works. When you're great, we love you and we think you're great. But when you're not great, you get killed on TV. No, that's not the way TV works. That's the way life works. That's the way sports as an entertainment vehicle works. Because we all expect so much from Dwight that we've never quite seen before. And when we don't, and he's making $167 million over his 12 years, people are going to criticize him. Does he really care about it or not? And that's what it's almost like Dwight deluded himself into somehow thinking, oh, people think I'm a bad guy. That's not the point. The point is no one thinks that you care enough about the game that you were sort of born to play with your physique and your athletic ability and your leaping ability. Simple as that.
At the risk of Charles Barkley wanting to slap me upside my head and Kenny Smith wanting to call to check me because, you know, I love them both. Those are my boys. You're absolutely right, Skip, in terms of how you dissected what transpired last night. This notion that Dwight Howard is a bad guy, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Well,
nobody's ever said that Dwight Howard's a bad guy. A matter of fact, they've said quite the opposite, because quite the opposite is true.
Yeah.
Dwight Howard's a very good guy. He's a good young man. He's decent. He doesn't have a malicious bone in his body. He's not trying to hurt anybody. That's not who he is. That's not who Dwight Howard is. The problem with Dwight Howard is that when people see, and Dwight Howard has to grasp this, they also leaned on and leaned on the notion that you got to be you. Kenny Smith was talking about you got to be you. Well, far be it for me to question a two-time champion whose brother is a big-time mentor to me, so Vincent Smith, who I love dearly, helped teach me how to play the game of basketball, and I've idolized Kenny Smith all my life, and nothing about that changes right now. That's my man. But where I disagree with him in that respect is that when he says you got to be you, well, wait a minute. Yeah, but no. On one hand, you got to do what makes you comfortable and what helps you play the best that you can play when that's the priority. But when you are a franchise caliber player, you are also called upon to lead. And if the imagery or the persona that you give off doesn't serve to inspire and galvanize the troops around you, then you might have to modify it a little bit to make sure that they don't have a reason to question your commitment to excellence, especially comparable to theirs. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
In other words, if you're a guy, if you're Dwight Howard, you're the $88 million man, you arrived in Houston, you're the cornerstone of the franchise along with James Harden. It's y'all team. So if you've got guys looking at you, and not saying that was the case in Houston, it was in LA with Kobe, but not necessarily in Houston. But when you got guys looking at you and they're saying you're very playful, you're very affable, but we don't know how committed you are to winning, whether it's taking them out to dinner, which I know Dwight Howard has tried to do, whether it's having personal conversations with them, which I know Dwight Howard has done, you still have to address the situation and make sure they don't believe you to be somebody who doesn't prioritize winning and success. And to say that just being yourself, that's all it takes, it doesn't work that way. Dwight Howard is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, back-to-back, 2008 to 2011. When healthy, this brother is big time. He has a very valid point when he talks about, as a big man, you want to be involved. You can't just dribble the ball and bounce the ball and do all the things that James Harden does, because that's not your skill set. You're a big boy. You're down low, banging down low. You expect to have the beast fed. And that's the job of a guard. And if that's not being done, Dwight Howard's absolutely right. And Charles Barkley is absolutely right when he says, unquestionably, Dwight Howard has to opt out. This is his last opportunity to make big-time dollars. And he has to go to a winning situation where his marketability can elevate, because then that affable personality comes in and the things that he wants to do in the endorsement world will present themselves even more the way they once were when he was in Orlando. But in order to do that, he has to look in the mirror and recognize that even though playing with James Harden, hogging the ball, as great as James Harden is, hogging the ball didn't work to his advantage, Dwight Howard also assisted in his own disadvantage, because he was the one who elected to leave Orlando with Stan Van Gundy. He was the one who elected to ultimately depart L.A. with Kobe. And so when you have that and you decide to go to Houston, well, then the situation is what it is. Looking in the mirror and understanding what you did to yourself, and, to use his words, not being pissed off at anybody else's notions of it, but being pissed off at yourself.
Yep.
Because you could have made better decisions. He's a good dude. He's a good brother. He can play. I still think he's got a lot of game left in him. But I thought last night, I agree with you, the narrative was all wrong. Dwight Howard is not perceived as being a bad guy. He is perceived as being a guy that is very, very nice, whose commitment to winning has been repeatedly questioned.
Yep. And to your point about Orlando, I don't think he'll ever have a better situation that he had with Stan Van Gundy and that team that got to the finals against Kobe and lost, obviously. But Stan was great for Dwight, because Stan's not a bad guy either, but he's a nagger and sort of a nitpicker in a good way. You know, like he constantly relit Dwight's fire, and he surrounded Dwight with an array of three-point snipers. So they had the perfect blend of inside, outside. Like, has it ever been better in a smaller market?
It hasn't been better. It hasn't been better. But I'll give you a couple of scenarios where it could potentially be just as good as it was in Orlando, meaning in terms of Dwight's use. I'm not talking about the same level of success, like you might end up winning a conference championship, even though it's possible. I think Dwight Howard going to play for Rick Carlisle is a win. because Rick Carlisle is an exceptional coach.
Yes.
I think Dwight Howard going to D.C. to play with John Wall if they can't get Kevin Durant, with Scott Brooks there now as the coach, because John Wall can get to the basket anytime he wants, and he knows how to pass, and he's a mercurial talent. I think that could work. I think him going to Atlanta with a Popovich protege in Budenholzer could also work to his advantage, plus it would enable him to go home. He don't need to be with the Knicks in New York, okay? Because Phil Jackson don't want to coach. Phil Jackson wants Kurt Rambis because you don't need to go there. But talking about Atlanta, talking about Dallas, talking about Washington, I think those are very viable opportunities.
So you're saying Dwight is going to get his money on the open market once more, right?
Well, he's going to get some money. I don't know if he'll get max dollars.
Yeah.
It'll take a desperate team in order to give it to him. But it's not like he's a scrub, Skip. I mean, if it was not for the Golden State Warriors brand of basketball, Dwight Howard would demand even more money on the open market.
I got it. But wouldn't you agree that the bottom line to Dwight, to Kenny's point about you have to be who you are, that's who he's always going to be? I don't think you can change Dwight at the next stop where suddenly he plays with fire that we've never seen before. He is who he is.
No, you're right. You're right, but you can change the perception. And here's how you can change the perception. You can make sure that the players who play with you don't think that. The coach who coaches you doesn't think that. See, on the outside, looking in, we can think whatever we want, but it's been validated by the Kobes, the James Hardens, a guy like Shaq, who's tutored a bunch of big men, saying these things.
Correct.
So it has validity. But if you go about the business of ingratiating yourself with prospective teammates and coaches where they know unquestionably that you have a commitment to excellence, and there are no questions about that, then the outside world will adapt because you'll have guys vouching for you. That's what he needs.
Good point. Starting from the inside out. Skip's not buying it, though. We step aside from the NBA for now. For our next debate, we will go to the NFL, where the Broncos are the defending Super Bowl champs, of course, but it's the team they beat in the AFC Championship game that sits atop the power rankings. How do the fellas feel about that? We'll get into it when we come back.